Hi, I'm Harry Weiner, the director of SpaceCamp, the movie. I am really sorry that I'm not there with you to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the place that inspired our film. But I had a previous commitment. A group of pals from Detroit, where I grew up, had promised a year ago to get together to celebrate our 50th anniversary of friendship. So I'm on the rivers of Oregon, the Rogue River, on a rafting trip. That's the only thing that would have kept me away from being there with you. It's amazing to think how much time has passed since we made the film. In that intervening period, Kate Capshaw married Steven Spielberg, became part of Hollywood royalty, doing some wonderful things for our community. Kelly Preston got married to John Travolta and raised a wonderful family and continues with her splendid career. And Lee Phoenix, who was Max in our film, became Joaquin Phoenix and garnered 2 Academy Award nominations for Gladiator and Walk the Line. I understand that Patrick Bailey and Ed Buckbee are there. I am so sorry I don't get a chance to see you guys in person, but I send my best. Patrick was the one who had the inspired notion to create a movie based on the facility at Huntsville, and Ed was the one who had the foresight to see it through. I think about the time that we were making the film and what the space program represented for all of us. They were just about to launch the first civilian into space, and every one of us around the world saw that that opportunity was at our doorstep, just around the corner. It was a time where the space program represented unlimited possibilities, and space itself was a metaphor for unbound frontier, and whatever you could imagine, you could make happen. Our film was released 3 months after the Challenger blew up. And with that tragedy went the innocence as well as the hopes and dreams of many. It took the space program a long time to try to rekindle the imaginations of people around the globe to believe that space exploration was a worthy exploit, and at a personal level, that feeling of unlimited possibilities was achievable by every individual. But during all that period of time, SpaceCamp in Huntsville was ushering over 600,000 young people through its portals, every one of them coming there to pursue a dream. They got a chance to explore not only their interests in mathematics and science, unparalleled around the country, but rocketry and the prospect of space exploration. They were the ones, the facilities at Huntsville there, that kept the flame alive, the belief that that unbound frontier was still accessible for every one of those young people who was coming there. And for that alone, SpaceCamp should be celebrated. I am really sorry that I'm not there personally. I send my thoughts and prayers to you all, and keep the flame alive. May the force be with you, and Godspeed.
Okay, well, why don't we maybe just open it up if 3 of you just want to take a minute just to give your reflections back 27 years ago when the filming took place, and looking back on it now.
I thought the movie was better tonight than the first time I saw it. When Lee Sentell told me we had a Hollywood producer in the building, my first thought was, evacuate. We have a fine American product, very clean type presentation. It's one of those products in America that we're very proud of, and the last thing that I wanted to happen was Hollywood to come and to completely destroy that image. So I'll tell you a quick story. After I'd signed the contract for this film with this gentleman to my right, I had a dream that night, and I dreamed that Patrick called me and said, guess what? Animal House is coming to SpaceCamp. And John Belushi is going to be the lead. And I did not sleep for 3 nights after that dream. Your turn.
I tried, but I couldn't get John. So we wound up with Kate Capshaw and all the stars that you saw, and it was a real challenge. The amount of fly-by-wire, thin wires that you can't see, and paddles floating out from the camera platform underneath the bodies of people to simulate zero gravity. It was a painstaking event again and again, but what drove us to do the best job we could was to try to keep the wonder and the challenge of SpaceCamp alive in the movie. And I think we did, because we saw all the young kids go through these drills in the simulator, and from day one just pushing the wrong button, pushing no button, till the last day, lifting off, coming back in, joining, shuttle returns, just incredible stuff. And we tried to keep that pure notion of excitement and adventure in the film, and I think we did.
I'm trying to think of something that you haven't already heard tonight or heard over the years. Originally, the film was to be called Space Cadets, and we weren't all that excited about it because obviously SpaceCamp is the brand, and that's what we wanted to happen. And after Challenger, the studio got a little nervous about using the word space in the title, and there was some discussion of changing the title to Going Up. You know, what does that mean? And so we kept feeding Patrick, and he would feed to the studio, to the PR people and the marketing people, that we were getting great media coverage on SpaceCamp after Challenger, because SpaceCamp was good news, and the media was looking for good news about the space program. It just so happens that the February issue of Boys Life magazine had SpaceCamp on the cover, and a nice SpaceCamp feature inside. We'd been advertising for a couple of years, and finally the guy who was our ad salesman really pushed the magazine to do a feature on SpaceCamp. And because of Boys Life, we were getting a lot of phone calls with interest in SpaceCamp. USA Today came to Huntsville after Challenger and went out to Marshall and to try to do some sort of a story, and Marshall basically wouldn't talk to them. And so they came out to the museum, and the guy's first name was Jack, I don't remember his last name now, but he did a front page story on the strength of SpaceCamp. And again, we kept feeding all of this and trying to push the studio into just calling it, we kept calling it the SpaceCamp movie, and eventually they just started calling it SpaceCamp, and that was a real victory for us, because we had no control over what the film was going to look like, but we could help influence the marketing. When the film came out, June, I think it was the middle of June, and unfortunately it didn't do very well at the box office, and in 4 weeks it was gone, and it only grossed about $10 million, and we were pretty despondent, just really, really disappointed. But we had been in discussions with Video Vestron that was going to release the VHS, and negotiated with them to put filmed on location, U.S. Space Camp, Huntsville, Alabama, on the back of the video box in exchange for 10 trips to Space Camp. And and then that came out in November, and then in February it was on pay television, and it did extremely well on HBO. And that's really where a lot of the strength of the push for registration came. As Patrick mentioned earlier, our SpaceCamp attendance in I can't remember whether it was 85 or 86, was about 7,000 kids, which we thought was a really strong number. But within 2 years after the film came out, it was at 20,000, which is just pretty spectacular. And we had places like Boy Scouts at Piedmont Scout Ranch, which had been around for 50 years. They were watching our attendance, and they called and said, "What are y'all doing to get so many kids to come to SpaceCamp?" And I said, "If you're fortunate, get a movie made at your place," because it really made a lot of difference for us. Has Deborah Barnhart gotten here yet?
No, she has not yet, so I'll let you know when she does.
My recommendation to her, and we worked together, our times overlapped. I was here from 82 I think to 91, and she came a couple of years before I left. And I had just such great respect for her when she was head of SpaceCamp. I just absolutely think she hung the moon, because she has continued with the same integrity and strength that Ed Buckbee started the whole program with. The one thing that has made this program so successful, and the reason it got off to such a strong start, is because Mr. Buckbee wanted to make sure that everything we did was quality, reflected NASA positively, reflected the contractors, and so that's really been the strength all of these years. And those of you who have never had your picture made with Ed Buckbee, I want you to do that tonight, because 20 years from now, when SpaceCamp celebrates its 50th anniversary, there'll be two names that'll be remembered, and one will be Werner von Braun for having the idea, and the other will be for Ed Buckbee for not only creating the museum and making it the top tourist attraction in Alabama, but also creating the most popular the most popular youth education program in American history. I think we need to give Mr. Buckbee a hand.
I've got two more very, very quick Ed Buckbee stories. Lee Sentell was talking about what a stickler Ed Buckbee was for authenticity and for the reality of the real SpaceCamp. And he said, "Bailey, you know what I think you ought to do?" And I said, "No, what's that, Ed?" He said, "I think that I can pull some strings and we can go up in the Vomit Comet, the 707, and you'll get some real weightlessness time up there so that you can get a sense of what that's like." So we go through the chamber, we get ready to do it, we go up, and we have an actual engine failure emergency. Shut down the #1 engine, and of course, Ed, after we got safely back on the ground with all the fire engines and ambulances, says, "What'd you think about that?" And I said, "I wasn't aware we had an emergency." So it was a pretty fun experience. And then there's just one more quick one, the Stearman biplane that you saw, that Leah Thompson arrives into SpaceCamp. I found that airplane in Gunnersville, Alabama. And 2 years after the movie was completed, went back and bought it, flew it across the country, and donated it to the Museum of Flying. But in between time, we had to have, as what was written in the script, was for Leah Thompson to arrive in the Stearman in a grass strip. Well, there's no grass strip nearby. But we found out that if we put all of our camera crew directly on the center line of the Redstone Arsenal runway, we could pretend that there was a grass strip just off the end. Ed can tell you about that.
It's the only time that I'm aware of that a civilian plane was landed on Redstone Airfield. The Redstone Airfield was closed down for one entire day. And the crew was there with all their stuff, and they shot them, and he flew the aircraft, of course, and they shot the scene. Well, the next morning, I get a call from the commanding general of Redstone Arsenal, and he says to me, I tried to land at my airfield last night, and it was closed. SpaceCamp was there. Do you know anything about that? I said, no, sir. It must have been those people from Hollywood.
And speaking of that, you know the gentleman that you saw on video reporting in, Harry Weiner, the director, would love to be here. He's the one that probably toiled harder and longer than anyone in the film to capture the majesty of zero gravity and try to put it into the drama of the film, which he did. Now, he'll be looking at whatever video that is taken today, so can we give a congratulations to Harry Weiner for his great work?
As Ed Buckbee said initially, he was kind of nervous about the whole thing. He was just pretty suspicious of these Hollywood types. And I kept trying to comfort him, saying, oh no, they're our friends, they're going to work with us. They wouldn't do anything that would embarrass us. However, when the first script came, written by this guy, at the end of the film, when the kids are up there in space, it was kids from the Russian space camp that were going to save the kids. And so I read the script first and took it into Mr. Buckbee, and I said, well, we have a problem here. You were right. They are going to mess us up. But we immediately said, the Russian stuff is not going to happen. That is just, that's out. You've got to come up with something totally different. But, okay, one bad idea. But the cool thing is about the production company, and those of you who have been around movies before, you know what, it's literally a circus comes to town because it takes 90 or 100 people. The very last night of filming here at the Rocket Center, they had to be out because the next morning at 8 o'clock, the very first adult space camp weekend was about to start. So when I left here at midnight and they were still filming, I just had my fingers crossed. I thought, well, there's nothing I can do. It's out of my hand. I was concerned about the PR problems that we might have if the adult camp didn't work, because we had a columnist from Time magazine coming to be in the very first session. And he was scheduled to have a full page in next week's issue. When I got here at 8 o'clock the next morning, there was no sight of the circus of his 120 people and their 10 18-wheelers. They were completely gone. The Space Camp staff had cleaned everything out, and these 20 or 30 adults showed up, and you would never have known that the movie was there. But the Space Camp staff worked very hard and had to sort of rearrange a lot of things about Space Camp so as not to be in the way of the movie. Is there anybody here who was involved with the Space Camp movie production, or if you're in it?
I think we've got at least Taylor. Where's Taylor at?
Stand
Taylor,
up.
if you'll stand up. Taylor was a counselor then and was also an extra in the movie. If he's in a couple of scenes there.
We've got about a PowerPoint of maybe 10 shots.
Yes, you want to do that next?
Yeah, let's show that.
All right, so if we can switch over to the PowerPoint.
I'll tell you one quick story
okay.
while you're watching that. After the movie came out, my daughter Jana was teaching elementary school, and she wanted to run it in her class. So she spoke to the principal, and he said, absolutely not. That movie has a lot of cuss words in it. I said, look, Jana, I'll take care of that. I'll get a copy, and I'll have all the cuss words deleted out, and you can show it in your class. she showed it, and I said, how'd it go, Jana? She said, oh, it was wonderful. The kids loved it. And every time one of those blips came up on the screen where the word was taken out, some kid stood up and said, that was a, and he repeated the cuss word during the movie.
Okay, Lee, you want to cover this? These guys may want to turn around so they can
Yeah,
see
the
what-
picture
what
overhead,
you,
that's
put together.
Patrick.
Well,
That's Patrick. He's never been that large. This is a shot of, is this in Santa Monica?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right, next.
Next slide.
Next slide.
Okay, there we have Phoenix and our wonderful, wonderful stars gathering. This is toward the beginning of the script, and everybody is just kind of getting used to one another and all the equipment that we're going to be working on. But this was early on.
Next slide.
And here we have Harry Weiner to the left, lining up with a shot. And there's Larry, and there's Leaf, and we got the whole crew sitting up. But this was also toward the beginning of the motion picture shooting.
Next slide.
And we've got Kate Capshaw sizing up the campers. You'll remember this was, and you know, a movie is not shot in sequential order. Over to the right is Harry, our cinematographer behind him, who's now passed away, and Kate. But this was early on. We did easy stuff early on to try to get the cast comfortable with one another and where we were.
Next slide.
Yes, we actually made Jinx. Yeah, at least 7 times, because Jinx had to do so many different things. And what was wonderful is that when kids did come to SpaceCamp, one of the first things that they asked about is, where's Jinx? And I'll let you guys tell that story.
Well, Sentell did not have any money to make a Jinx. We could never make the Jinx work, right?
Next slide.
Wow, the cast and crew gather. This is our wrap party, saying goodbye. And you see our primary crew down in front. We have Harry Weiner back there too, our wonderful director, 2 or 3 rows back. And so many of the people from SpaceCamp. Bill Fraker, our cinematographer, rest in peace. And just so many wonderful people from SpaceCamp. Matter of fact, some of you in the audience may recognize your figures up there right now. Wow.
Yeah, let me mention, some of you may not recognize where this is now. This is the steps by the Blackbird out front before what is now the main lobby gift shop was enclosed. It was an open-air pavilion when the museum first opened. So that's where that is today. You can see the cooling towers for the Space Dome IMAX Theater there in the upper left.
And if you look to the far right, the third guy from the end with the beard, isn't that you, Patrick?
Yeah.
On the far right.
Yeah, I think that's an unfair shot, though. I look a little fatter in that picture. Yeah.
Next slide. Oh, this is John Williams accepting the SpaceCamp uniform. If you think about the music in the film, and if it seems like Superman or Raiders of the Lost Ark, that's because they were all done by John Williams, who's won numerous Oscars for his productions, and he was just tickled to death. Well, this is the original logo that Mr. Buckbee designed for SpaceCamp, and well, it's a military-looking patch, and I think you did come up with that. If you think back to the film, well, maybe there's. Well, let's go to the next slide and see. If, oh yeah, back.
Oh my gosh.
Sentell on the left when he was
12.
and younger. Now, what I was looking for was the round patch from the movie.
Oh, yeah.
because the round patch, the mission patch for SpaceCamp in the movie was designed by Patty Norris, costume designer who won an Oscar for 2001. And we knew that SpaceCamp was going to be a big hit, so we decided to change the real SpaceCamp patch to something that resembled the one that people saw in the film.
It was a good idea.
Next. This is the premiere in Huntsville with Harry Weiner on the end. I'm not sure who the lady is next to Mr. Buckbee. I put Susan West on these credits because I have no idea who the woman is.
Thanks a lot, Sentell.
She was somebody from the studio,
Okay.
and this was in Huntsville. Okay, next. Look at the patches. You can see that today's SpaceCamp patch is very similar to the ones that the kids are wearing here. Is there one more? Oh, yeah. USA Today liked it. New York Times liked it. USA Today gave it 3 stars out of 4. Okay. And this is the poster for the VHS copy. It really nice art. I think it's better art than for the original theatrical release. Next. That's it. Anything you want to say, Mr. Producer, to wrap this up?
I'd just like to thank you, Lee, and Ed for giving me and our team the opportunity to work with so many wonderful people here and have the opportunity to do SpaceCamp. Thank you.
Okay, if you want to come back up, I think maybe we'll take a few questions from the audience. I would mention, though, while they're taking their seats tomorrow night, as part of the ceremony celebration Hall of Fame, we have a silent auction benefiting the scholarship fund, and one of the items in that auction, and it's a lot, consists of the original script, poster, a pre-screening movie ticket with the original artwork on it, the Vestron Video SpaceCamp hat that was issued out for it. So it's quite an interesting, and we're going to see if these guys up here will autograph some of those items for that auction, and that will be auctioned off tomorrow night. So, okay, do we have some questions? Don't be shy. Now's your chance. Any questions for these guys about the movie? Go ahead.
The multi-axis trainer had a hand controller that we fooled around with, trying to engage it to actually do something with the multi-axis, and we were never able to be. We were never successful. In fact, we were trying to do it on the Letterman show, and we nearly killed 2 people trying to perfect that. So we finally stopped, but that was not ever officially operating. It never functions, but it was a nice effort in the movie to connect the two.
Yeah, and for a number of years we had kind of a dummy stick on there as kind of a leftover prop. So
What it was when that guy designed that multi-axis, by the way, which happens to be a good German engineer by the name of Oscar Holder. That was a real multi-axis trainer used by the Mercury guys, and I saw it a long time ago at Langley, and I was actually in it a couple times when the Mercury guys were playing around with it. And when we got a hold of it, we had to kind of modify it so young people could get in it. And if we had used it as it was designed for the astronauts, you guys would not have been comfortable in that machine because it was very fast and very erratic. And I wish we could have done it, but we never were able to condense it down to make it safe for kids.
all right, another question?
Whose idea was it to put the robot in the movie? Whose idea was it to put the robot in the movie?
The original draft of the storyline in the script, Jinx made it into the original draft. So Jinx made it from page 1 to what you saw tonight.
Okay, up in the back.
What did it cost to make the movie?
It was originally set to be about 8, went to 10.5, and by the time Sentell was done pestering us, it went all the way up to 20. So it was an expensive endeavor.
The reason it was so expensive is when the crew arrived here, it was like a carnival had placed themselves on our property. These people brought their own food and water all the way from California. They were the most picky people I've ever been associated with. So no wonder the movie ended up costing $20 million. We have food in Alabama. We have water. We could have, provided that to these people.
I remember going out to dinner with Harry Weiner several times, and he said, now this food doesn't have any MSGs in it. And of course, in the South, we think you got to put salt on everything. So I think he was kind of frustrated that he couldn't find restaurants and servers who understood what that request meant.
Okay, let's see, another question?
Where is Jinx?
Where is Jinx now?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think we would have to search through ABC Motion Pictures, MGM Studio Lot, but I have a feeling that Jinx may someday wind up back here at SpaceCamp, because we, as a result of this reunion, we asked the same question. And I can promise you, we're going to put our forces to work and see if we can find out where Jinx is. And if and when we do, he'll be here in Huntsville.
I would like to sweeten the pot to make sure that that is going to happen. And to do that, I would like to ask your youngsters to come down and accept a souvenir from the movie. Are your youngsters still here?
Do you think they can come down with Mom?
I think they can.
Okay, well, they make their way down. Taylor?
Yeah, I would echo that about the food, too, you were talking about earlier. I think it was the first and only time I've had swordfish anywhere was on the set of the movie. But also want to know, when is the sequel, The Counselor's Revenge?
There you go.
This one is Bryn Rose, she's 9, Logan is 6, and
You're 5.
well, you're going to be you're going to be 6 in 2 weeks. All right, he's 5. It's just the movie producer in me. You just, kind of embellish.
These are 2 patches that were left over from the movie that were never sewn on anybody's costume. So when you come to SpaceCamp, you can already have official SpaceCamp movie patches on your uniforms.
Wow.
Here, here. I would like to kind of wrap it up on my end here, and say to Patrick and Lee, I'm not sure SpaceCamp would have survived without the movie. We had an idea. It was kind of like a backyard camp where our friends and relatives came to in Alabama. We weren't the greatest place to come to in Alabama in those days. It was not always looked upon as the place you want to send your kid. And I really believe that $20 million movie truly put us on the map and established the credibility that SpaceCamp has today. The other thing that should not be ignored is when that movie went video, it opened up opportunities for us in Canada, in Japan, in Belgium, Spain, France, and many other countries that enabled us to take that brand to some of those countries and we were very successful with that. And that in turn allowed SpaceCamp to grow and be expanded, and that's when Commandant Barnhart became a part of the growth, and she developed Academy and all these other programs that we have today. So I have to tell you, Patrick, if you hadn't shown up with your convoy of carnival people from Hollywood and taught us how to make a movie, we may not have been here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to thank y'all for being here tonight. It seems kind of surreal to be talking about SpaceCamp the movie 25 years after anybody had seen it in theaters. I have a poster of the movie in my office in Montgomery, and at least once a month when somebody is in there on business to talk to me about something, depending on their age, and their age range is probably 45 to, maybe 40 to 50. If they turn around and they see that poster, they will say, oh, when I was a kid, that was my favorite movie. I love that movie. We watched it over and over again. And the fact that people have that feeling about the movie, and about the fact that you have the interest and enthusiasm for the space program and SpaceCamp, y'all are the reason that SpaceCamp has been successful. And the fact that you have carried your interest forward, and that you're here for this weekend, and there'll be even more people here tomorrow night. So thank y'all for keeping the dream alive. Thank you.
Thank you.